2019 was a year that made me, that almost broke me, but in the end, I'm out here still standing. So let's recap.
Excellent, guys. 1, 2, 3.
I started 2019, a year that was so chaotic, in one of the most peaceful, tranquil places ever at the Amangiri in Utah, which was so amazing, I guess is the only word I can really describe. And we got in the car and we went to Antelope Canyon, which was a place I've always dreamed of going. It's the, canyons with all the colors that looks totally unreal, and I have thought about it for so many years. Shortly after we left Amangiri, we went straight back to New York, where we shot the Spring Summer campaign with Emily DiDonato, who is just basically pure heaven. One of the nicest, I think, most beautiful inside and out American girls you could just ever meet. Like, there's something about Emily that reminds me so much of my mom and my sisters. And when Lynn Wyatt says yes, you just book the ticket and you get on the plane and you go. So we, the next day, got up super early, got on the flight, went to her house, and she ascends the stairs in her tall boots and a Brandon Maxwell scarf and a white button-up and jeans, and looks amazing. And we sat there and she narrated the entire scene. So she watched Emily on the screen, dancing around. She commented on the clothes. And then shortly after that, we went right back to New York. So for the previous few months leading up to the fall show, I had been dealing with some family issues. My mom had been battling breast cancer. I had started filming Project Runway for the very first time. And in that experience, I would film the show for 2 days, and then I would fly home to Texas to be with my mom, and I would fly back to film the show. And on January 24th, my mom finished her last treatment, and she got to ring the bell, which is a incredible experience, and something I'm so glad that my grandfather, of all people, got on camera, and we got to have it. And to have put that step behind us was probably the greatest gift that I received in 2019. Okay, we're gonna go to the next destination, and we will talk about we can't sit here while we're in Hawaii and just watch me drink out of this fish cup. I mean, we gotta see what's around. So about 2 weeks later, we had the fall show, which was so reflective of that experience with my mom. And I think when you look at the fall show, which now has become my favorite show ever, it was very quiet, very intimate, very black and white, very restricted and polished. But this show, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Marla Weinhoff, who I work with on the set design and is such a genius, built in the middle of 34th Street this very tiny room that only 200 people could be in. It was super intimate, very almost claustrophobic. We were unsure leading up if my mom was going to be able to come to the show. She's never missed a show before, but because she was not feeling super well from the treatments, we were unsure. At the very last minute, she was able to come, which was really just the cherry on top of the cake. And that very quiet show was over, and they played Forever Young at the end when everybody walked out, and I came out and I was able to grab my mom and walk down the runway, and it was one of the greatest moments of the year for me. The Oscars for me there's nothing really more important for me than the Oscars. I think growing up in a small town, it was the most exciting thing to watch. It was kind of, I knew that there was life out there when I watched the Oscars, and so to get to be a part of it, I think is probably the highlight of my life, really. I've gotten to go to the Oscars, I've gotten to dress people to go to the Oscars when I was a stylist, and I've dressed people as a designer to go to the Oscars. It's just a joy. But to my surprise, as she ascended the stage, no one told me to sing her first song and to win her Oscar, she was wearing a dress of mine that no one had told me about. So that was just, how can you say, that's basically friendship. It was a magical moment. I screamed so loud that the hotel thought something was wrong with me, and I was almost losing my breath. And to have it happen with one of your best friends on her special night was so something I can never even say in a video. It still makes me cry now. Another really great moment. The Texas Medal of Arts is given by the Texas Cultural Trust every 2 years, to people who have made a mark in the arts and are from Texas. So people that won the award this year, like Matthew McConaughey, were from the same town. Jennifer Holliday, Boz Scaggs, really incredible artists who have actually made a big difference in the world. And so to be there, I was the youngest person to ever receive the award and the first person in fashion. And it was just kind of one of those moments in your life where you look around at your siblings and your parents and you feel proud that they may feel that you might have made it in your life. As I was walking out of therapy, I had a flurry of phone calls, and I picked up the phone, which was my publicist on the other end of the line, who was screaming inaudibly at me. And if you know me, or if you can't tell from this video so far, I basically say anything that comes to my mind at all moments, and we'll talk about whatever. So I was absolutely positive that I was in a lot of trouble. And as it turns out, I had received my first nomination and my only nomination for CFDA Women's Wear Designer of the Year. And so I started screaming, and I went to a bodega and I got a bag of chips, and I went into a scaffolding area and ate the chips and cried alone by myself at this magical moment that I knew was once in a lifetime and will probably never happen to me again. Okay, so I thought I would take you to a very serene spot to talk about one of the more stressful things that I had to do this year, which was go on live television and talk shows to promote Project Runway. On my television show, or our television show, Project Runway, we are a pre-taped show, which means that if I say anything that I'm uncomfortable with, they can take it out. My very first one was Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, who I know because I'm on the Bravo network, which happens live at like midnight. And I was on with Bethany Frankel, who I love, from Real Housewives of New York, who's no longer on Real Housewives, but she's a great entrepreneur and businesswoman, and I love her. I was so ready to be on the show and excited, and as soon as I got there, a wave of sickness came over me, like you actually are throwing up. So as I got ready to go on, I said to Bethany, like, I think I might throw up on television, and she said, it's fine, dude, it'll be great television. And it made me feel so comfortable in that moment. So we started the show. After the first segment, I looked at Andy and I was like, I think I am actually gonna be sick on TV. So they brought me a club soda, and I think I'm the only person on Watch What Happens Live to eat live on the show. I just sat there and ate the entire time to keep my stomach from, I don't know, being sick. This year I had decided, like around this time, that I was not going to go or dress anyone for the Met Gala. But Gaga had asked me in the end, just in a casual conversation, she said, do you want to go together? I said, do you want to go together? And she was the co-host this year. And so in a random morning conversation over breakfast, we decided to go to the Met Gala together. We've done really high impact moments like the Oscars and the Super Bowl and tours and live television, but also when you're really good friends for so many years, you have a natural dialogue. You don't sit down at a conference room table and plan anything out. You just kind of text here and there and call here and there and say, what do you think about this and that? It was I think it hit us not out of fear, but out of how special it was that, you know, she had really supported me in this venture in my life and pushed me out there to be a designer and supported me as a friend and said, like, you can go achieve your dreams. And we've been there with each other so much. And so to arrive at this event together where it's a designer event with your best friend who's co-hosting, and to go together after all these years was so special. And I think we looked at each other and it hit us like, wow, this is really happening. We left the building to walk and everybody was carrying her dress, and we looked at each other and we just said, this is really fun. There was people cheering on the street, and it was just, I hadn't realized until that moment when we were 500 steps away from the Met how big of a moment it was. And so we went onto the carpet. We were the very first people. It was like nobody was there. It was silent. And then when you go, and we did it for however many minutes, it felt like 30 seconds, but I know it was longer than that. And then we went into the Met where there is no phone service because it's a concrete building. So nobody called, nobody texted, nobody said anything. Anyways, I left the Met, and it turns out people did see it, and that it went sort of well. And then I went to the hotel early, fell asleep, and when I tell you that I woke up the next morning with the worst food poisoning I had ever had in my life. I ate something before the Met. I did not eat at the actual Met. I mean, I was sick and asleep for 3 days. I missed the entire aftermath of the Met. I missed every text message, every article, every I missed everything. And then we had the CFDA Awards. Okay, so when I tell you that I had such anxiety leading up to this night for months, I'm talking a type of anxiety that just overtook my life. I felt weirdly embarrassed to be there. I felt undeserving of being there. I felt maybe I shouldn't go. So I figured the best thing to do, I invited every single person that works with me at my office, anybody who works on our team. The whole day, everybody came over and we had a big barbecue at the house. So everybody who I work with was there at the house with their kids, and it was very like normal and chill. We got into the van, we went, and shortly as I get out of the car and I get close to the carpet, I realize my bow tie is upside down. I'm not wearing the right shoes. So the nightmare is coming true. And then the category came out. They announced my name. I think it took me 5 minutes to get to the stage because I thought I was going to pass out. And then I got to the stage and I actually had a moment where I started to see stars and thought I was going to pass out. I looked in front of the audience and there was J-Lo and Valentino in front of me. What? It was so bizarre. I talked, I think, for almost 10 minutes. Don't remember anything I said. And then I went backstage and cried hysterically. I was in a car commercial. For almost 10 years before I was a designer, I was a stylist. So my whole career was spent on big sets. I would show up on TV sets or music video sets or commercials, and I was always part of the production. So for me to arrive in Marfa and see all these trailers everywhere and cameras, and there's hair and makeup and styling, and I was kind of looking around, and like after a couple minutes, I was like, oh, this is like, for me, I'm starring in the commercial. So it was a very wild experience. I spent 3 days driving in a car while everybody's filming me and driving through the mountains and doing a little bit of acting, and it was great. And then like a couple weeks later, every time I turned on the TV, my voice was there. The voice that I made them lower a little bit, an octave lower, because I didn't want to hear myself sound like that on TV. So thank you, Kia, for that. By the time I got back from that trip in Texas, I had been able to process a little bit because I'd had some time what happened at the CFDA. And I realized like my one big takeaway from that is that really no designer, no matter what you hear, what you read, does this job alone. I mean, the amount of love and therapy and kindness and selflessness that my team shows me is unreal. And I thought the best way to encapsulate the fall show, which was really a lot about my mom and that love, was to highlight my team that I work with. So for the fall 2019 campaign, we shot almost every woman who works in my office. Most of the time, I think a lot of people think that fashion is so glamorous and that we come to a very glamorous office, which it is nice, but we're mostly in like sweatpants and eating seamless takeout and working late. So it was really special to see everybody come in, and they had fittings and they had hair and makeup and they had their hair blown out, and everybody felt very glamorous and exciting. And you know, being behind the camera is something that gives me a lot of joy. I grew up taking photographs, and so to be able to work with them in a different way and to help to make them feel their best which they do for me every day, was a real honor. And it's probably one of the things I'm proudest that we've ever done, is to tell that story and to give those women that platform. It was a great couple days. Next up, we have the Spring Summer 2020 show. I get all the seasons confused. But this was the first time that we introduced menswear. We showed in Brooklyn for the first time. I built sort of like a bleachers, grass, smoke, confetti, party moment. And again, for September, I was back in party mode. It always happens after the summer. I come off like a very colorful, fun time, and I'm excited to, have the music and the joy and the dance again. This was such a great time. We had Shake Shack outside, we had a bar inside and sippy cups, and it was super, super fun. Irina Shayk opened the show and really set the tone for the fun. There was a lot of twirling and dance, and we did a lot of denim, and it just was a great American moment for me. I think I was coming off a lot of things and I felt a lot of pressure, but as the show as we inch closer to the show, and I had that experience with my team shooting the campaign, I think we were all really in this group together where we just decided, let's just have fun. Let's just have fun and see what happens, make clothes that are colorful, that we love, that we think that women will like, and let's just do that. I've worked in Paris for many, many years, most of my career, and I've always been there for work. I've never gotten to really go there to go to flea markets or restaurants that I love. I've always kind of associated Paris with work. So I really wanted to take time this year to go to Paris, enjoy it, try all the things. Paris and Los Angeles are probably the two places I've gone most for work, more times than I can count. And I always associate them with work, but I tried this year to go to both places and really enjoy and see what I like there. It was so fun. It was time to promote season 2 of Project Runway, where we got back on a plane and went to Missouri. So we all decided before the show was going to come out that we were going to take time to go to each other's hometowns and spend time with people who we love, and also young fashion students in the community who had similar dreams. So we started out in St. Louis, in Carly's City, where she was discovered in a mall, and there's a great St. Louis fashion fund. It was amazing. We woke up one morning, we all got on a plane together, we flew to St. Louis, we got on the ground, and we went to Carly's house, where her mom made probably the most amazing cheese spread I've ever seen in my life. The entire table was just filled with food, and it was so welcoming and warm and just American and great. And we premiered the show that night at a big party, and so many people came, and we got jerseys that said our name on the back, and it was awesome. The last couple months of 2019 were not as high impact as the first, let's say, 9 or 10 months, because towards the end of December, you have to launch a pre-collection, and coming up in February is the main collection. So for the last 2 months, I really hunkered down. I was in my office all the time, very late nights. We put out a pre-collection, which I loved. We launched the TV show, and we went right into Thanksgiving and Christmas. And for this year, for Christmas and Thanksgiving, I didn't take any big trips or do anything. I stayed home for Thanksgiving, and I cooked probably more casseroles than I should have, just for myself and Jesse, half of which turned out really terrible. Turns out I'm not a cook, so this is not gonna probably be a food blog. And then for Christmas, we went home and spent time with our families. Guys, thanks for watching my very first YouTube. Make sure to like, subscribe. Just like and subscribe, I guess.